Most people are surrounded by others and still starving inside. What if the real reason you feel disconnected is because you have too many connections? This insight will permanently change how you choose people. You were never meant to be available to everyone, yet you were taught that more friends, more connections, more presence would make you feel whole. Instead, it left you scattered, emotionally tired, and quietly disconnected from yourself. Here's the uncomfortable truth most won't tell you. Depth doesn't survive in crowds. Carl Jung believed that real psychological growth doesn't happen through social expansion, but through inner alignment, through fewer, more demanding, more honest bonds. The kind that strip away masks instead of rewarding them, the kind that challenge your identity instead of applauding your performance. This video reveals why reducing your social circle isn't a loss. It's a return to meaning, intimacy, and belonging that actually transforms you. If you've ever felt alone, despite being connected, you're about to understand why. And more importantly, you'll see a clear path out of that quiet emptiness. You've been told your whole life that more is better, but deep down, you already know that isn't true. More contacts, more messages, more social noise, yet less meaning and almost no real belonging. Here's the quiet truth Carl Jung pointed toward. The soul doesn't grow in crowds. It grows in silence, friction, and depth. Think of connection like fire. Spread it thin and it cools. Focus it and it transforms. Your psyche craves authentic connection, not constant stimulation. That's why some relationships feel alive while others feel like background static. You're not broken for wanting fewer people. You're wired for intimacy, not accumulation. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Picture your attention as water in the desert. If you pour it everywhere, nothing grows. But if you choose one place and keep watering it, roots form, then strength, then life. That's how psychological growth actually happens. Every bond you maintain demands energy, presence, and emotional honesty. When you spread yourself too thin, you're never fully there. You laugh, you reply, you show up, but only halfway. Deep belonging requires full presence, not multitasking souls. That's why fewer bonds often feel heavier, richer, more real. They ask more of you and give more back. Here's something most people won't admit. Shallow relationships feel safe. They don't challenge your identity, your boundaries, or your hidden fears. But safety isn't the same as fulfillment. It's like eating fast food every day, easy, familiar, and slowly draining your vitality. Deep bonds are different. They're home-cooked meals for the psyche. They nourish, but they take effort. They require vulnerability, listening without planning your reply, and staying when it's uncomfortable. That discomfort isn't danger. It's growth knocking. Your unconscious knows which connections matter long before your mind agrees. That inner pull is individuation calling. Let me make this practical for you. Take a quiet moment this week and list the people who truly energize you. Not the loudest ones, the real ones. Who can sit with you in silence without it feeling awkward. Who challenges your excuses but respects your boundaries. Those are rare bonds, and rarity is a feature, not a flaw. Start investing time intentionally. Longer conversations, fewer distractions, real listening. Put your phone face down, look them in the eye, stay present. Depth grows where attention stays. This is how transformation begins, quietly, deliberately. Once you honor fewer bonds, something surprising happens. Your sense of meaning sharpens, your energy stabilizes, your inner world feels calmer. You stop chasing validation and start recognizing resonance. You realize you don't need many witnesses, you need real mirrors. And those mirrors don't flatter, they reflect truth. That truth can be uncomfortable, but it's always liberating. This is why fewer friends often lead to stronger intimacy, not because you reject people, but because you choose depth over noise. And as you'll soon see, this choice doesn't just change relationships. It begins to reshape who you believe you are. You've probably felt it before, that strange emptiness after a long conversation. Plenty of words were exchanged, laughter even, yet nothing really landed. That's because most connections never move past the surface. They skim emotions like stones on water, never daring to sink. Carl Jung understood this well. The soul recognizes depth instantly. When it's missing, you feel restless without knowing why. Small talk keeps you busy, but it doesn't create meaning. It fills time, not inner space. And over time, your psyche grows tired of pretending that's enough. That quiet dissatisfaction is a signal, not a flaw. Surface connections are built around roles, not truth. You're the funny one, the strong one, the listener, the achiever. Those masks are useful, but they block authentic connection. Think of it like shaking hands through a wall. You're technically touching, but there's no warmth, no grip. Real intimacy requires removing at least one layer of armor. That's scary, so most people avoid it. They stay polite, agreeable, emotionally distant. The result is a world full of interaction and starving for belonging. Your soul feels that hunger long before your mind explains it. Here's the paradox. The more you avoid depth, the lonelier you become. Shallow bonds multiply easily, but they don't support psychological growth. They can't hold your fears, contradictions, or doubts, so you edit yourself over and over until you forget what honesty feels like. That's exhausting. It's like constantly holding your breath underwater. Eventually you crave air, and that air is depth. Depth is where someone says, "I see you," and doesn't look away. That moment changes something inside you. It reminds you who you really are. Let's ground this in something practical. Next time you're talking to someone, notice how often you perform. Do you rush to fill silence? Do you soften your truth to keep things comfortable? Try a small experiment. Pause instead of filling the gap. Say one honest sentence instead of a safe one. You don't need to confess your life story, just be real. Watch who leans in and who pulls away. That reaction reveals where depth is possible and where it isn't. Most connections stay shallow, not because people are bad, but because they're afraid. Depth demands vulnerability, and vulnerability threatens the ego. It challenges identity, habits, and emotional defenses. But without that challenge, no real transformation occurs. You stay socially busy, but inwardly stagnant. When you start noticing this pattern, you can't ignore it anymore. You begin craving fewer conversations and more honest ones. You start valuing silence over noise, truth over approval. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, your boundaries strengthen, which leads directly to the next realization: why depth requires courage, not comfort. Choosing fewer friends isn't a social downgrade, it's an act of courage. It means you're no longer hiding behind numbers or busy calendars. You're standing still long enough to be seen. That's uncomfortable because authentic connection exposes you. You can't disappear in the crowd anymore. According to Carl Jung, depth always asks for sacrifice. You sacrifice comfort, approval, and sometimes popularity. But what you gain is meaning, and meaning always costs something. Most people avoid this cost without realizing it, not because they're weak, but because courage is rare. Think of it like entering deep water. Shallow water lets you stand safely, always in control. Deep water requires trust. You either float or learn to swim. Deep relationships work the same way. You can't control how you're perceived once you show your real self. Your fears, contradictions, and doubts become visible. That visibility triggers anxiety because the ego prefers certainty, but the soul thrives in uncertainty. It grows there. This is where psychological growth actually happens, not in comfort, but in honest exposure. Many people confuse courage with confidence, but they're not the same. Confidence says, "I've got this." Courage says, "I don't, but I'll stay anyway." Deep bonds demand that second kind of strength. You stay present during awkward pauses. You speak truth without knowing the outcome. You allow disagreement without withdrawal. That's real intimacy, not harmony, but honesty. It's like forging steel, heat, pressure, then strength. No shortcuts, no illusions. Here's how you can practice this courage in real life. Choose one relationship where depth feels possible but unexplored. Next time you talk, resist the urge to entertain or impress. Instead, share one genuine thought you usually keep hidden. It might be uncertainty about your future or a fear you laugh off. Nothing dramatic, just real. Notice how your body reacts. That tension is courage forming. If the person responds with presence, lean in. If they retreat, respect the boundaries forming naturally. Either way, you gain clarity. When you choose fewer bonds, you also choose responsibility. You can't blame loneliness on lack of options anymore. You're accountable for the depth you allow or avoid. That responsibility reshapes your identity. You stop chasing acceptance and start cultivating belonging. Belonging isn't about being liked, it's about being known. And being known requires bravery most people never practice. But once you do, superficial connections lose their appeal. You begin sensing which relationships can hold weight. And that awareness leads you straight into the real price of depth, the shadow it exposes. Superficial relationships don't hurt loudly. They drain you quietly. At first, they feel light, easy, harmless, no tension, no risk, no deep emotional stakes. But over time, something inside you starts to feel dull. According to Carl Jung, whatever is avoided doesn't disappear. It sinks into the shadow. And shallow bonds are often a way of avoiding ourselves. You stay busy so you don't have to feel. You stay agreeable so you don't have to confront. You stay connected so you don't have to be alone. But avoidance always collects interest. Think of superficial connection like emotional fast food. It's quick, convenient, and socially acceptable. You consume it constantly, yet you're never truly satisfied. Your hunger isn't for interaction, it's for meaning. When conversations never go deep, parts of you go unseen, and unseen parts don't vanish, they grow restless. That restlessness often shows up as irritability, boredom, or quiet sadness. You might call it burnout, but it's actually disconnection. Not from others, from yourself. That's the real cost of staying on the surface. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Superficial relationships protect the ego, not the soul. They allow you to curate an image instead of revealing a reality. But every image requires maintenance. You remember what you said, who you were, how you acted. That mental load fragments your energy. Deep down, you know you're being edited. And the psyche hates fragmentation. It longs for wholeness. This is where psychological growth stalls, because growth requires integration, not performance. Let's bring this into your daily life. Notice how you feel after different interactions. Some leave you energized, grounded, more yourself. Others leave you oddly tired, even if nothing bad happened. That fatigue is information. It tells you where authentic connection is missing. Start honoring that signal. Limit time in draining conversations without guilt. Use those hours for solitude, reflection, or one meaningful exchange. This is how boundaries become self-respect. When you reduce superficial bonds, the shadow doesn't disappear, it emerges. Old fears surface. Loneliness may knock louder for a while, but this isn't regression, it's exposure. You're finally seeing what noise used to cover. And in that space, something important begins to form. A clearer sense of identity. A hunger for real intimacy, not substitutes. A deeper capacity for belonging, which naturally raises the next question. How do you cultivate depth in a world addicted to distraction? The world won't help you choose depth. You have to choose it yourself. Every system around you rewards speed, visibility, and constant availability. Depth moves slower. It asks you to resist the current. As Carl Jung implied, what truly matters grows inward, not outward. That means fewer notifications, fewer obligations, fewer automatic yeses. It also means tolerating silence without reaching for distraction. Silence is where authentic connection starts breathing again. When you stop performing, something real has room to appear. Most people never stay still long enough to feel this shift. You can, and that's already a quiet advantage. Cultivating depth isn't about grand gestures, it's about small, repeatable choices. Choose conversations over scrolling, presence over productivity theater. When you meet someone, really meet them. Put your phone away, soften your gaze, slow your pace. Ask one question you actually care about, and listen without interrupting. Listening is an underrated form of intimacy. It signals safety, respect, and genuine interest. Over time, people reveal who they are when they feel unhurried. Depth grows where time isn't being stolen. This is how belonging quietly forms. Here's a metaphor that helps. Think of connection like gardening. You don't water every plant equally. You prioritize the ones with roots. Some plants are seasonal, others are perennial. Depth requires knowing the difference. Not every relationship deserves the same emotional investment. That's not cruelty, it's wisdom. Your energy is finite, and boundaries protect it. When you respect your limits, your identity stabilizes. You stop bending to fit rooms that were never meant for you. And paradoxically, you become more available to those who matter. Try this practical reset over the next week. Block one evening for intentional connection or intentional solitude. No exceptions. If it's connection, choose one person and go deeper, not longer. Share something meaningful, ask something real, stay present. If it's solitude, reflect, journal, walk, or read something that feeds meaning. Books like Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl or The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho are great starts. These moments recalibrate your inner compass. They remind you what depth feels like. Once you taste that clarity again, surface-level noise loses its grip, and something transformative begins to take shape beneath awareness. As you cultivate depth, you'll notice a subtle internal shift. You feel steadier, less reactive, more grounded in yourself. You stop chasing connection and start recognizing resonance. This is psychological growth in motion, quiet, stable, irreversible. The world may still be loud, but you're no longer lost in it. Your relationships become fewer, but heavier with meaning. You're no longer seeking validation, you're building belonging. And with that comes an unexpected strength, a sense that you're not just connected but supported, which opens the door to the most powerful realization of all, how true belonging reshapes who you're becoming. True belonging doesn't make your life easier, it makes you stronger. It's not about comfort, constant agreement, or emotional pampering. It's about being anchored while you grow. When Carl Jung spoke of individuation, he wasn't describing isolation, he was describing alignment. Belonging happens when you're accepted without being diluted, when you don't have to shrink, perform, or over-explain yourself. That kind of authentic connection stabilizes your inner world. It gives your psyche a place to rest and expand. Without it, even success feels hollow. With it, even hardship becomes meaningful. Think of true belonging like a mountain base camp. It doesn't climb for you, but it supports the climb. You can return there bruised, uncertain, exhausted, and still be held. That safety doesn't weaken you, it frees you. When you're not busy protecting yourself, your energy turns outward into psychological growth. You take risks, speak truth, and face challenges more honestly. Belonging doesn't remove fear, it makes fear survivable, and that changes how you move through life. You're no longer reactive, you're rooted. That root is what most people are missing. Many confuse belonging with dependency, but they're opposites. Dependency says, I need you to be okay. Belonging says, I'm okay, and I choose you. That distinction reshapes your identity. You're no longer clinging, you're connecting. You're no longer seeking approval, you're sharing presence. This is where intimacy becomes empowering instead of draining. Two whole individuals meeting, not two wounded egos bargaining. That dynamic multiplies strength instead of consuming it. It's rare and transformative. Here's how this shows up in real life. When something goes wrong, you don't spiral as easily. You know you're not alone, even in silence. You have people who can sit with discomfort without fixing you. That kind of support builds resilience fast. It trains your nervous system to tolerate uncertainty. You stop overreacting to setbacks and start responding with clarity. This is meaning in motion, not theory, but lived experience. Belonging becomes a stabilizer, not a crutch, and that stability changes your decisions. As true belonging takes root, your standards rise. You become less tolerant of superficial bonds and emotional chaos. Your boundaries sharpen, not to push people away, but to protect depth. You invest where reciprocity exists. You step back where it doesn't. This discernment isn't cold, it's mature. It reflects an inner shift toward wholeness, and once you taste this level of belonging, you don't want substitutes anymore. You start asking deeper questions about who walks beside you, which naturally leads to the final realization, how these connections ripple outward and change more than just your life. Here's what no one tells you about deep relationships. They don't stay contained. When you cultivate authentic connection, it quietly spills into everything else you touch. Your tone changes, your patience grows, your reactions soften. According to Carl Jung, inner alignment always expresses itself outwardly. You stop performing roles and start responding as a whole person. People feel that shift immediately, even if they can't explain it. Depth carries a gravity that surface-level interaction can't imitate. You're no longer chasing attention. You're generating presence, and presence has a ripple effect. It rearranges rooms without saying a word. Think of yourself as a tuning fork. When struck with truth, you don't just vibrate, you tune others nearby. That's what deep belonging does. It steadies your emotional frequency, making chaos less contagious. You listen better, interrupt less, react slower. These small shifts invite safety in others. People open up around those who are grounded. They sense intimacy without pressure. And suddenly, conversations deepen, not because you force them, but because you're available. Depth invites depth. This is how real communities form, not through shared opinions, but shared presence. When you're rooted in meaning, you stop needing to win conversations. You become curious instead of defensive. That curiosity disarms tension. It turns disagreement into dialogue. You start asking better questions, not louder ones. And people respond differently to that energy. They feel respected, not evaluated. This is psychological growth expressed socially. It's subtle, but powerful. Here's a practical way to notice this ripple effect. Pay attention to how people respond to you after you've cultivated depth internally. Do conversations last longer without effort? Do people trust you with heavier truths? Do conflicts resolve faster instead of escalating? These are signs your inner work is visible. You're not fixing others, you're stabilizing yourself. That stability creates space for healthier exchanges. It's leadership without a title, influence without manipulation. As this ripple expands, something else becomes clear. Not everyone can or will meet you at this depth, and that's okay. You stop trying to pull people into waters they're not ready to enter. Your boundaries become calm, not defensive. You offer presence, not persuasion. This discernment protects your identity and preserves energy. You begin seeing connection as responsibility, not entitlement. And with that clarity, a final question emerges quietly. How do you live daily life without betraying this depth once you've found it? Here's a hard truth most people learn too late. Depth without boundaries collapses. You can't sustain authentic connection if everyone has access to you. When your inner world is always open, it gets crowded fast. Carl Jung understood that individuation requires limits. Limits aren't walls, they're containers. They give shape to meaning and protect what's essential. Without them, even beautiful connections turn draining. You begin to resent what you once valued. That resentment isn't a character flaw. It's a boundary that was never built. Think of boundaries like the banks of a river. Without them, water spreads everywhere and loses force. With them, the current becomes strong enough to move mountains. Your energy works the same way. When everyone gets equal emotional access, nothing feels special. Depth requires selectivity. Not everyone deserves the same level of intimacy with you. That doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious. Belonging deepens when access is earned, not automatic. And your nervous system knows the difference. Many people fear boundaries because they associate them with rejection. But boundaries aren't about pushing others away. They're about staying whole. When you say no to one thing, you say yes to another. Usually, you're saying yes to psychological growth, yes to clarity, yes to alignment with your identity. Every time you override your limits to keep peace, you lose self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of real belonging. Without it, connection becomes negotiation instead of choice. That's where exhaustion begins. Let's make this practical and grounded. Start with time boundaries. Those are the easiest to test. Notice which interactions consistently leave you depleted. You don't need dramatic exits or explanations. Shorten the interaction, delay the reply, create space, then observe how your body responds. Relief is information. Guilt is just an old pattern protesting change. As you honor these limits, your energy consolidates. Depth suddenly feels sustainable again. As boundaries strengthen, something unexpected happens. Your connections don't disappear, they clarify. Some relationships naturally deepen, others quietly fall away without conflict. This sorting isn't loss, it's alignment. You stop managing relationships and start inhabiting them. Your meaning sharpens, your presence stabilizes. You realize depth isn't about how many people stay. It's about who can meet you without crossing you. And once you see that, a final realization starts forming. What happens when you fully commit to living this way, every day? When depth becomes your standard, daily life starts to feel different, quieter, but richer. You're no longer rushing to keep up with everything and everyone. Instead, you move with intention. As Carl Jung would frame it, your outer life begins aligning with your inner truth. You wake up less scattered, less pulled in 1,000 directions. Your choices stop being reactive and start becoming deliberate. This is what authentic connection does. It reorganizes your priorities. You spend less time explaining yourself and more time being yourself. And that shift alone saves enormous emotional energy. Depth simplifies without making life small. Think of your day like a conversation with yourself. When you live superficially, it's loud, rushed, full of interruptions. When you live deeply, it slows down and starts to make sense. You notice what deserves your attention and what doesn't. You stop saying yes out of fear and no out of clarity. This is meaning expressed in behavior, not philosophy. Even simple routines, meals, walks, work, feel more grounded. You're present instead of preoccupied. Presence is a form of intimacy with life itself. And once you feel it, distraction loses its appeal. Living in depth also changes how you handle conflict. You don't escalate as quickly because your identity isn't on the line. Disagreement no longer feels like a threat. You listen first, respond second, defend less. That emotional regulation is a sign of real psychological growth. It means your nervous system trusts itself. You're not constantly scanning for danger or approval. Instead, you're rooted. Rooted people don't need to dominate conversations. They influence through steadiness. Here's a simple way to embody this daily. Before committing to anything, plans, conversations, obligations, pause for 3 seconds. Ask yourself, does this deepen or dilute me? That question alone filters your choices fast. If it dilutes, you don't need excuses, just honesty. If it deepens, you show up fully. This practice reinforces boundaries without rigidity. Over time, your life feels less cluttered and more intentional. You're not doing more. You're doing what matters. That's how depth becomes a lifestyle, not a concept. As this way of living stabilizes, something subtle but powerful happens. You feel less urgency to prove yourself. You trust your pace, your path, your timing. Your sense of belonging shifts from external validation to inner alignment. You know who you are even when no one is watching. That quiet confidence isn't arrogance, it's integration. You've stopped splitting yourself to fit the world. Instead, the world meets you where you stand. And from here, one final insight emerges naturally, what it truly means to protect this depth over a lifetime. Finding depth is powerful, but protecting it is the real work. Because once you taste authentic connection, the world will constantly try to pull you back into noise. Speed, urgency, comparison, distraction, they never stop knocking. Carl Jung knew that individuation isn't a moment, it's a lifelong discipline. Depth isn't something you achieve and keep forever by default. It's something you choose again and again. Every day asks the same quiet question: will you protect what matters or trade it for convenience? That choice shapes your inner life more than any dramatic event. And most people never realize they're making it unconsciously. You won't be one of them. Think of depth like a fire you carry inside. If you expose it constantly, it burns out. If you hide it completely, it suffocates. Protection doesn't mean isolation, it means discernment. You learn when to speak and when to stay silent, when to open and when to hold back. That discernment strengthens your identity instead of fragmenting it. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. You stop proving value to those who can't perceive it. This is emotional maturity in action. Over time, you'll notice a temptation to regress. Old habits resurface, people-pleasing, overcommitting, shallow validation. That doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. Depth isn't fragile, but it does require maintenance. Just like physical strength fades without training, psychological growth stalls without intention. So you return to simple practices: silence, reflection, honest conversation. You check in with yourself regularly. You ask whether your relationships still reflect your values. This self-honesty keeps meaning alive, and it prevents slow erosion. Here's a practical anchor you can return to anytime. Choose one non-negotiable ritual that protects depth. It might be a weekly walk alone, journaling at night, or a long conversation with one trusted person. Something that reconnects you with yourself. That ritual becomes a compass when life speeds up. It reminds you who you are beneath roles and responsibilities. It reinforces boundaries without rigidity. And it ensures that belonging starts internally before it's shared externally. People who sustain depth always have these anchors. They don't advertise them, they live by them. As years pass, this commitment quietly compounds. Your life feels coherent instead of scattered. Your relationships feel chosen, not inherited by default. You become someone others feel safe around, not because you fix them, but because you're real. That presence is rare, and it's earned slowly. You don't chase connection anymore, you embody it. This is what it means to live in alignment, not performance. To value intimacy over access, truth over approval. And once you reach this point, you realize something profound. Depth isn't something you have, it's something you become. Now it's your turn to decide what you'll do with what you've just learned. You've seen that authentic connection isn't about adding more people, it's about choosing truth over noise. You've seen how meaning, belonging, and real intimacy only emerge when you protect depth with courage and boundaries. So ask yourself honestly, which relationships in your life nourish your growth, and which ones quietly drain it? What would change if you stopped chasing approval and started choosing alignment? If you invested your time, energy, and presence in fewer bonds, but deeper ones? Who would you become if your relationships supported your identity instead of fragmenting it? These aren't abstract questions, they're invitations. And every day, through your choices, you answer them, whether consciously or not. You don't need to disappear from the world to live deeply. You just need to stop betraying yourself to stay connected. Depth is available to you right now in the way you listen, the way you say no, the way you show up fully where it matters. This is psychological growth lived, not theorized. And once you begin walking this path, there's no going back to substitutes. If this message resonated with you, stay with us. Subscribe to Mind's Silent Echo, activate the notifications, and continue exploring the ideas that most people avoid, but desperately need. Because fewer connections can change your relationships, but deeper bonds can change your life.